Well, hey everyone, and welcome to the Crossway podcast. I'm Josh, and today I am joined by our worship pastor, creative arts pastor, Kelly Lafferty.
Hi.
And today we wanted to do something a little bit maybe unusual from our regular content, and we kind of just wanted to make you aware of and let you know about all of the ministries that we have here at Crossway, because there are a lot, and I think a lot of people don't realize just how much is available to you, not just both to serve, but as an outreach for our church and what our church provides our community and the people that attend. So,
yeah,
Kelly, why don't we? So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to kind of go through. We've compiled a list of these things. And we're just going to kind of go through each one, talk a little bit about them, a little bit about the volunteer opportunities that are in there, and what it takes to have those ministries run. So, Kelly, why don't you just start us off?
Okay, sure. So we're going to start with our Crossway Kids Ministry. And if you're unfamiliar with our children's pastor, that's Angela Marshall. So if you have any questions about this area, she's a great one to reach out to. But it consists of two different parts of this ministry. So we have our preschool ministry and our elementary school ministry. In our preschool ministry, you'll see those classrooms really open on Sunday mornings during both our 9 a.m. and our 10:30 service. We have volunteers that come together and teach, and we absolutely don't know what we would do without those volunteers. They really allow kids birth through kindergarten learn about Jesus and how much God loves them. And there's so much more than just childcare. It's a lot of just teaching some of the foundational things about God's love for them when they're just that little. I mean, that's just so important.
Yeah.
And so once they kind of move past the kindergarten age, they go to what we call our Crossway Kids, and that's our 1st through 6th grade. Right now it looks a little bit different, but they meet during our 9 a.m. and our 10:30 service. They're meeting upstairs in an area that's got several classrooms, and they split up by grades, and they also spend some time learning about God's love for them, but they also spend some time in worship. They also play games. They like to be a little silly. And we have lots of people that help make that happen every week. We have small group leaders that, commit to spending pretty much every week with those kids, so they grow those relationships with them and get to start to have some of those conversations around, Scripture and who God is and how important He is to us. And then they also have a worship team that goes. It's a little bit different. COVID space has made everything we've had to be a little bit creative. But Angela has done a great job by having worship for each of those classrooms. So they have a traveling worship team. So they have somebody that will, they'll lead worship.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So each classroom that consists of 3 things. They have small group time, they have teaching time, and then they have worship time. And so the worship team is usually a couple people, and they'll go from classroom to classroom and
How many
worship.
classrooms do you know?
There's 3.
3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they spend some time leading in a couple songs, and I actually got to go up the first week that they did that, with their 1st and 2nd graders, and it was just so neat to hear them singing through their masks, but being led in worship, and that was really awesome. So we have a worship team that's a volunteer team. We have people that do what we call service hosting up there, where they kind of play silly games with the kids. I think this last week they stuck their hands in a box, and you had to guess like what was in the box. And just stuff that kids like to do. Yeah. Really cool opportunities for those kids at 9 and 10:30. Right now, we're still going through space where you have to register your kids in order to attend on Sunday morning, and you can do that for this coming Sunday through Friday at noon.
Yeah.
So make sure you visit our app or crossway.news.
I'm going to put a ton of links in the description of the video if you're watching this on Facebook. But if you're listening to this somewhere else, you can find all of this stuff on crossway.news or on the Church Center app.
Yeah, so make sure you get your kids registered. I know the 10:30 service, some of those rooms, they max out. So you don't want to miss that opportunity to get your kids in here on the weekend. There's also another a group of people that meet through the Crossway Kids Ministry called MOPS, which is Mothers of Preschoolers. And if you're unfamiliar with that, it's a really neat opportunity. It was one of the ways, you probably don't even know this, but one of the first ways I got involved in Crossway
many
years ago. Yeah, I was drug by one of my friends, Anne. She had me come to MOPS, and it's a great connecting point for moms who have smaller children, but it's not just mothers of preschoolers anymore. We also invite moms that have school-age kids to come and be a part of that. So if you're interested in finding more about MOPS, we'll probably say this a lot. Go to crossway.news.
Yeah,
and find out
or the
more.
link in the description.
Or the
I'll
link in the
all
description.
This week is just going to be a long list of links for you to you to check out.
But we have lots of ladies. That actually MOPS is pretty much all driven volunteers. Like all volunteers make that happen. Their point of contact is Jessica Gain, who is our preschool director, and so she's one of those people that helps get their stuff together. But really, things are done and put together and put on by our volunteers.
Talk about our recess program that's also sort of tied in with all the kids stuff.
Absolutely. Recess is one of the coolest things that I think we do here. It's an awesome outreach, respite ministry that allows families that have kids with special needs to have a night out. And it's not just for the kids with special needs. A lot of times, the parents just need a break. And so it's an opportunity for them to drop off all of their kids and spend some time with us here at the church. And so that happens once a month on Friday evenings. And the child with special needs actually has a one-on-one volunteer with them at all times. And those kids basically get to do what they want to do, play video games, they color, they basically just drag their volunteer everywhere. And it's great. They have a great time, lots of fun. And not only that, but then their siblings get to have fun too. And so we'll have movie nights, they'll have crafts and activities for them to do. I know around Christmas time, we usually have somebody come in and read the Christmas story, or we have Santa come visit. It's just a lot of fun for those kids. And if you're interested in finding out about the recess program, that's another thing that you'll be able to go to.
Link in the description.
Link in the description. But it's actually an application process because we know how important it is to match volunteers with the right kids. And so we go through, it's a little bit longer process to make sure those kids get in.
Yeah,
in
and
the
you
right
might
way.
find that you might actually find that as a theme through a lot of our ministry areas. A lot of times we are, like Kelly said, we are trying to make sure that we're putting the right people in the right places, and obviously, where everybody wants to serve, and maybe they don't know where the best place to serve is, or what their gifting is, or something like that. So, one of the things that we try to do as a staff and as an organization is try to help facilitate that in people.
That's right. Yeah.
So, given that COVID is sort of interfering with a lot of our ministry stuff right now,
that's an understatement.
Is there anything available to parents in particular?
Yes.
For kids to, if they're not coming into our in-person services, to take advantage of?
Yeah, there's we know that there's still a category of people who feel like it is, it's in their best interest health-wise. They've probably been advised by their doctors, or maybe they're in that group of people that is compromised, that they just need to stay home for right now. And we understand that some of those families have kids. And so what Angela and Jessica have done is they've put together these, what we're calling at-home kits. And it allows you to get sort of the Sunday morning activities for the month, so that you can do these at home with your kids. They also do a great job on their Facebook page. If you don't follow them on Facebook, make sure you go to our Crossway Kids Facebook page. They post videos weekly that tells you what they're learning that Sunday morning. So you can show the actual teaching video at home with your kids. These at-home kits allow you to do the activities. We give you everything you need. Like if it asks for marshmallows, we're giving you marshmallows. So everything it's all inclusive. You're not going to have to go out and hunt down different things. But we ask that you register for these as well, just so we can make sure we have the right number of things together. So you can get registered for one of those. And pickup for that will be next Friday on October 30th from 12 to 4 p.m.
Is that kind of like a once a month thing?
Yeah, so that'll be the November pickup. So,
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so moving sort of on up in age in our list of ministries that we have here, the City Student Ministry. Obviously, you've probably heard about about this if you know anything about Crossway Church. Chandler has been on the podcast before, has talked a little bit about that. But the student ministry is a big ministry, and it's loaded with volunteer opportunities and people that serve from our church. And sort of like the kids, the city student ministry is split up into junior high and high school. And we actually do a separate service, a whole entire different event for the junior high students and a separate service for the high school students. And we have a different set of volunteers that work with our junior high students and a different set of volunteers that work with our high school students.
It's a lot of people to juggle.
Yes. And they are one of the biggest roles in our student ministry are life leader positions, which are basically leaders that are assigned to a grade, and as of right now, a grade and a school and a gender for them to lead and do life with and talk with and have small group with on a weekly basis. And there are a ton of those positions because we have got, so you think, 7th through 12th grade.
Right.
Split up by school,
right.
Split up by gender, and there's a leader for each one of those categories. So
Colton
has recruited a whole load of people to pour into our students, but it's really super awesome. And then on top of that, there are actually what Colton and Chandler call coaches, which are basically life leaders.
Right.
So they basically oversee life leaders for each individual school, and they help do life with them and pour into those people. So there's really like this hierarchy of leadership and development that's going on from all the way to the top, all the way to the kids, and it's really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And not just that, there's a full service going on for each one of these things. So there's a worship and a tech team that's involved on Sunday nights for the high school ministry, Wednesday nights for the junior high services.
My son, Jackson, he's in 8th grade.
And he's a rock star.
And he
volunteers for like everything that we need him to do.
You just say like, I basically tell him all the time, like, I'll just go get Jackson to do that for you. And he'll do it. But he loves serving. He absolutely loves to come and serve. I think he feels like he's a part of something bigger. And I love that he's 14 and gets those opportunities.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's really cool about, especially the student ministry, is allowing kids that are 13, 14 to be able to start kind of developing that heart of servanthood. And
because a lot of what we do is just, it's very similar, right? We have the same sort of mission and goal and strategy in almost all of our ministries. And what that does is it translates to these kids and these students developing all of the tools and the skills and the mission and the collaborating effort that translates to what we do on Sunday morning too. So this is almost like prep and training
to get them ready.
Exactly.
Yep.
Another team. So when COVID is not an issue, typically we do everything in the student building, right? And we've got a cafe over there, and there's a whole team that operates that cafe, making coffees and food and doing all that. There's usually 3 or 4.
I miss the Wednesday night coffees.
It's super nice. It's like our own little personal Starbucks or something.
Yes.
So there's that, especially when COVID's not an issue right now. That's kind of not a thing because COVID doesn't allow us to do it. And there's also a group of volunteers, special needs volunteers. Specifically, they're basically like life leaders or leaders specifically for any of our students with special needs. And we've got a team just dedicated for those kids, and they spend time and do life with those kids in our ministry because we want opportunity and we don't want any obstacles.
We want to be all inclusive. I've watched these people at work, and it's awesome to see them want to just begin to help these kids understand like what church is and what it means to have that relationship with God. They just have hearts that are just so big.
Yeah. So, between our kids, our Crossway kids, and the city students, they probably take up like 80% of our volunteers.
A lot of our volunteers.
There's a lot of energy, and there's a lot of people that are investing in our kids and in our students, and I think it's just incredible. If there's anything I forgot about the student ministry, I'm sure Colton is going to leave a comment or something.
You forgot these people.
Yeah. I don't mean to forget anyone.
Yes, we really did our best to remember everybody.
All right, so let's keep moving then. We've got our Crossway kids, we've got the city students, and now let's sort of get into Sunday morning and some of the other things about our ministry. What the hospitality ministry?
Yes.
What falls under that?
And what this looks like.
And what does that look like?
So hospitality ministry is a really great ministry because it is really the front door to our church. The people that you see when you walk up to the building are the ones that are probably going to make the first impression on the people coming in. And so being a part of this ministry, it carries a ton of weight. And we always talk about that. We focus on our mission, and what we're doing is that we're allowing people that may have walked away from church or may have a hard time walking into church because of a bad experience, like they're the first people that they're going to see. And so, it is so much more than a handshake and a smile. It's really investing and really being personable, getting to know people's names, spending some time. So that's like our door greeters, the people that you see at the front door, the people that are taking your temperatures right now in COVID, people that are moving throughout the worship center, just telling you good morning. We used to have our info center set up, people that would operate those and answer questions about what's going on around the church. Those are all people that are involved in that ministry, and their main goal is to create a welcoming environment for anybody and everybody. And so another group that kind of falls under that ministry is also our section leaders. If you have not been coming to Crossway for a while, you may have not heard us talk about section leaders because we just really haven't, probably since January or February. So our section leaders are people that kind of oversee communities within our church. If you've ever stepped foot in our building, you've noticed that we split our worship center into 4 distinct sections, and each section has a leader, and their main focus and goal is to create a community within that section. And so again, they're there to basically establish relationships, to begin to learn who people are, to sort of allow people to feel comfortable coming to church. Because one of the things that people often say when they leave church is they say, I was there for weeks and nobody said hello to me. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen in our church. And so our section leaders are the ones in the worship center doing that. And the last part of our hospitality ministry is our security team. A lot of people wouldn't think of that as a ministry, but really the security team is a ministry. They're there in order to make sure we're safe, and they're there in case of any type of traumatic event or something happens, maybe a medical emergency. They're going to be the ones that sort of facilitate, keep people calm, maybe pray with the person as things are being dealt with. But it's not just a Sunday morning thing for our security team. They also participate on Wednesday nights around the building when our groups are happening, and also for our our student ministry stuff, Sunday nights. But that's a super important team. You'll see them kind of walking through the building on Sunday mornings with their little earpieces in. So
safety is a big deal for us. So that's a big part of what we do. And whenever we know that there are going to be people here engaging in ministry together, especially in larger volumes, we've usually got a team here. You may not ever notice them or see them or whatever, but they're here and they're paying attention to all the stuff that has to do with your safety. So
keeping you safe.
And that includes issues of even lesser safety issues, like something like a wreck happened at the light right out of our building or something like that. That team of people is in the know about that stuff and figuring out a plan for how we can best deal with those things.
Exactly. Yep. So I guess to move on. So once you kind of make your way into the worship center on Sunday mornings, we have a whole slew of people making sure Sunday morning happens. And it's like all volunteers. And sometimes people are shocked when we say that, but everybody on stage except for me or for Josh or, and Colton and Chandler, they're on staff, but they're doing that as a volunteer position. People that serve in our worship team, our vocalists, our anybody on our band. There are people behind the scenes that you never see,
right?
That stand off to the side of the stage to make sure our microphones work, to cue people to come on stage. We have a whole team in the back in the sound booth who run sound and lights, and also who do the slides on Sunday morning. Just all kinds of people that feel that God's called them to do these things, and they're there in order to create environments that allow you to experience God while you're in our building. And so that's their main goal. So that there's a whole team of people that make that happen.
Yeah, there's a service host.
Oh,
sort
yeah,
of just
service
like
host.
In
Yeah, that's right.
In the Crossway Kids, the person that's going to come out and welcome and lead us and give us some thoughts about giving and all that kind of stuff. That's another volunteer role. Yeah, there's just a ton of spaces like that. And then even when we have some volunteers that even when they're not scheduled to be on Sunday, they're still helping out. They're still doing things.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people on a big giant team that makes Sunday morning a thing.
It actually
for us.
it blows me away to a point to see how God has gifted people and how He uses those gifts in such unique and individual ways. And there's the passage of Scripture. I'm going to totally blank what book it's in that talks about the body, right? And that we're all parts of the body. I think it's Galatians. I'm probably wrong, so don't quote me. But it talks
Fact
about
check.
right. It talks about how we're all part of the body, and that when we start to come together with all of our unique and individual gifts, like how amazing it is that we get to do this together.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So apart from Sunday morning, we've also got groups. Right, which entails many of us are a part of a group, and we know that in order for a group to even be possible, we need a leader who's going to run and facilitate and organize and
Study and prepare
for that group. And so we have
right.
a whole subset of volunteers that are group leaders that are just dedicated to creating a system of a community for you guys. And that is something that's ever changing. I don't know if you know that, but typically there are some people who continue, and we're so thankful for them that continue
Being
to lead
leaders,
groups
yeah.
semester after semester. But a lot of times there's every semester we're looking for and recruiting new leaders. So if that is something that you are interested in or you feel like God has called you to do, Moose, our community pastor, Moose would be very happy to hear from you. You can connect with him on Crossway.news or on the Church Center app if that's something that you're interested in or didn't know that was opportunity that comes up every semester or so.
I mean, I've led a group several times, and I love it because my background is teaching. And so, I needed to sort of scratch an itch by teaching. And so I love just leading people and sort of allowing them to see different ways that, God has created them or how to strengthen their relationship with God. It's a neat thing to be a part of when you get to be a group leader.
Yeah. Speaking of groups, plug the Operation Christmas Child stuff a little bit since that's going on
currently,
right now.
Yes. So Operation Christmas Child, if you're unfamiliar with that, it's through the Samaritan's Purse. We do this every year. It's a great opportunity for families to stuff a box of items, and those items travel sometimes across the globe to kids that are may have not even heard who Jesus is. And so it's an opportunity to sort of introduce the gospel in places that has not been introduced before. And so to find out more information about Operation Christmas Child, you can go to SamaritansPurse.org. Or if you're here on Sunday mornings and you want to pick up a box and some information, we have a couple tables out. And I think now through November 8th. And then you can also swing by here on Sunday afternoons, this Sunday and next Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m. and pick up a box or drop off a box. We'll have somebody here between those times.
Some more volunteers.
Hanging
out for
Absolutely.
a few hours for
Yep.
for the Operation Christmas Child.
Yes, that's an important thing for us.
All right, talk, so kind of building off of that then, and even going outside of our walls, talk a little bit about missions.
I love what we're starting to do with missions. So missions is one of those things in our church that is starting to take off and go in a different direction, I think. And we're trying to get it as much exposure as we can. We're not only focusing on those international mission projects like Operation Christmas Child, but we're also looking at things that are local and stuff that's domestic as well. So I think Brian Tribble, who is our community pastor.
AKA Moose, who I
Moose.
referenced earlier.
Yes. He is our community pastor, and he's the one that oversees missions. Right now, they're doing an awesome little thing right now where they're highlighting hometown heroes. And they're just going to some of these people that are working, some of the jobs that have never stopped, are grocery store workers, people that are working in restaurants, and just sort of giving back to them, just calling their managers and saying, hey, who is a hard worker and could use a little extra money. And so, that's what we want people to know, not just within our walls, that God loves them, but especially people out in the community, like, hey, we appreciate your hard work. God loves you. We love you. And so that's some of the stuff that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And looking ahead, I think there's still a lot up in the air for 2021. I think that, originally this year we were supposed to go to do
on a missions trip.
two international missions trip to Guatemala, right?
It was kind of squashed real hard by
Yes.
COVID, as a lot of things have been.
I know. So, that was the hope to do 2 of those this year, but unfortunately those, had to be pushed off. And we're not quite sure what 2021 looks like, but we're praying.
Those are definitely not things that we've stopped thinking about.
Those are still
let COVID wash away from our minds. Those are
right.
at the forefront, because we know especially our people going out and doing missions like
Yes.
that is something where we
Right.
need to grow, and we want opportunity. We're looking to create that kind of opportunity.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
And
definitely still there.
actually, the next thing we're going to talk about is women's ministry. And we're actually, I'll explain this and then I'll go back and tell you about women's ministry. But we're actually talking about doing a mission trip within the women's ministry.
Oh, really?
A domestic trip for women. Spring break, we're going to have an informational meeting about it. But I think we might be going to New Mexico and doing running a VBS over there.
That's cool.
In the Navajo
I thought you were
community.
going to say Panama City, and I was like, that doesn't sound like missions work to me.
We're going to go to the Navajo community in New Mexico. So that's some stuff that we're looking forward to. But the women's ministry is awesome. I'm so excited. We just relaunched this probably a month, 6 weeks ago. It is completely different. Stacy Tennyson, who is a volunteer leader, has a vision for this ministry where we're just going and going to focus on intentional friendships and really digging deep into how God made us, and looking at trying to establish a better way to take care of each other. We're going to have circles. We didn't want to call them groups because we didn't want any confusion, but we have circles. And just to give you an idea, I have 3 friends and myself, and we're in a circle. And it's just accountability. It's just checking on each other. It's just encouraging one another if things are tough. And so there's still time to get plugged into that women's ministry, to be a part of a circle. And if you're interested in doing that, you can go to our Facebook page.
Link in the description. There's
Yeah.
a lot of links I got to put in here, so you're going to have to remember all this.
It may take a while, but that's something cool that's just getting off the ground. So continue to watch for more information about that in the future too.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So something else, actually, fairly newer. I don't want to say newer because it's not completely new, but something
Right.
we've started to look at a lot harder since COVID hit. And we talked a little bit about this last week in our Q&A. Since COVID, we've had to do a lot of things digitally, right? We've had to do a lot of things online. We've had to switch. There was a period of time where all of our services were only online. And so out of that has been born this new team of people that requires more
Guess
volunteers.
what? We need more people. Yeah.
In order to keep this up, because now that COVID has sort of led us into the realization of how important this actually is. I mean, when we started streaming those services online solely, we realized that there were people in different countries, all over the world,
Yeah, it was an amazing
participating
thing. Yeah,
with us. And this is
absolutely.
not something that has stopped. This is an ongoing thing. And so we have developed a team and a system to be able to keep this going even beyond COVID-19. And so we have a whole ministry that's dedicated to the online stuff, which I am a big part of. And there's a huge team that I have that you don't ever see probably on Sunday mornings, camera operators.
Well, you might see Jackson.
You might see Jackson because he's usually the guy on stage running back and forth and getting different shots and stuff. We're actually talking to him while he's doing that. We're like, Jackson, run over and get the drums.
He's going to fall down
And he
one day.
books it. Yeah. And he's fast too. I saw him the other day. I was like, man, he's going fast. But yeah, we have a whole team of camera operators. We've got a whole back room backstage that you might have never seen with we're monitoring all the camera feeds, and there's somebody back there live editing that video, switching between all the cameras, calling all the shots, making sure that things are looking a certain way and feeling a certain way for everybody who's participating online. And there's a sound guy back there, a separate sound guy from the front of the house guy who's running sound just for the live stream. So there's really a whole team of people that's been born out of this need that we've had since COVID. And also, there's been some other stuff that's come out of that too. This podcast, for instance, is one thing. We've really been thinking about how can we create new content or different content that's going to engage people in a purely online fashion. And so we've been wrestling with that, and this podcast is a part of that. And there's other things that are part of that too that I'm sure you'll see or we will be experimenting with. And so we like I said, we want to hang on to all of this stuff. We want to develop it. We want to make it better. And there's opportunity for people to serve in this capacity. And like I said, it's a whole new team of people. So if you, speaking as a recruiter for this particular team, if you can run a camera, or you're interested in running a camera, or you're interested in the techie side of all that stuff, hit me up. Let me know.
Yeah, because maybe you're an introvert, right? And you're just like, I don't want to lead a group, and I don't want the responsibility of leading kids or students, right? But I want to do something. Camera operator is a great place to go. Definitely need them.
All right, so there are these teams that we have that are also church elected teams. Talk about that. Explain what that is for people, and then talk about what falls under that.
Yeah, so there's several teams that we select each and every year that basically help us make sure we operate as a church. And so you probably, you may not even know that these exist. But what we do is each year these members are selected, and then they're reviewed and voted on at our yearly budget meeting that happens in December. And these committees are things like our building and grounds, and those people are just sort of responsible for making sure that things on the exterior part of our building are kept well. So you may see some volunteers out cutting portions of our grass. That's a part of that team. We have the ordinance team, which covers baptism and our communion. We actually have a baptism this coming Sunday, and part of that team was up here this morning on a Wednesday, getting that prepared and ready to happen this Sunday. And then they'll be here on Sunday morning to make sure those things, everything goes smoothly. So that team, is somebody we really rely on, monthly, really.
Yeah, setting up the baptism, making sure the baptism water is nice and warm for whoever's getting baptized. This is literally the amount of care that they put into this stuff. You'd probably never know that.
Yeah, you probably never thought to stop to go, how did that even get there? How did it get set up? Well, there's a team of volunteers that make sure that happens. We have a committee called our finance committee, and you can kind of guess what they do. They meet monthly, and they oversee our budget and our finances. They look and make sure that, we're spending accordingly to, where we are in the year, making sure we're not overspending. And so they're a good checks and balances group for us. And they approve major purchases that need to happen around the building. And then our last little elected group is our personnel team. And they meet as needed, but they kind of oversee our staff team and make sure that their budget's taken care of and that kind of stuff. So they're also important. But those are all volunteers, and each of those teams probably have 5 or 6 people on them. So they're important, and they're vital to make sure that we operate each year.
Yeah. Something else you can talk about that is in the same vein, I think, is the elders and the deacons, right? I mean, so if you didn't know, we're in the process of nominating and voting for our 2021 elders and deacons, and you can, again, link in the description description. We're doing that mostly online this year. If you can't do or submit your nominations or votes online, you can come in person during the week and pick up a ballot that way. But if you want to do it online and you haven't yet, because the voting actually closes this Sunday, so if you haven't yet, check out the link in the description or on the Church Center app. Just click on the Elder and Deacons button and submit your nominations. But talk a little bit about that, because that's sort of in the same vein, the elders and the deacons.
Right. So the deacons is a group of men who are servants. If you grew up Southern Baptist, it may be a little bit different than what you're used to, but deacons are really people that we call on to help serve. They do things like they take up our giving on Sunday morning. They count the money on Sunday mornings. If we need things painted, we put that out to the deacons like, hey, Angela just painted a lot of the new children's space upstairs, and she called on the deacons, and some of the deacons showed up. So there are things that we have around the building that as ministry leaders we just need help with, and thankfully we're able to call on a group of people like that. But they are nominated or elected. They're elected, and then they are ordained in December of the year, and then they serve in the calendar year. And then our elders are a little bit different. They are essentially like the governing body of our church. There are 4 men that meet monthly, if not more frequently. During COVID, they met more frequently because they were very concerned that we were doing things to protocol, making sure we were keeping you guys safe. And so it was a really good way for them to just sort of check and make sure things were happening. But they come together about once a month, and they meet and they talk about the things that are happening at the church. They meet with TJ and just spend some time just sort of speaking wisdom. A lot of those guys have a lot of wisdom, and it's just a good thing for them to be able to speak those things into what's going on at our church. And the elder's a little bit different, so we'll nominate an elder in this process by this coming Sunday, and then as a church, we will vote them in. And that will be on a Sunday morning, so you'll see something probably about that in November sometime.
Yeah.
And so essentially, that's kind of what those guys do.
Yeah. So again, if you haven't participated in that, this is like the election process for us
voting
as a church.
Voting is open, yes.
Obviously, nowhere near as crazy as the American election.
Yes.
But if you haven't been a part of that process, I want to encourage you to do that, because these are the leaders in our church that we as a group of people are electing to be the decision makers and the wisdom speakers and the people that really are essentially the sails for our ship as we move forward. So be a part of that process.
And if you wonder how those people become actually get on that list, in our Constitution and bylaws, there are some criteria that must be met in order for them to be on that list. And so I'm sure if you're interested in finding more about that, or how people got on that list, you can call the church office. I'm sure Vicki would love to talk to you.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just not random people that are on that list. They're people that have met criteria in order to be a part of that.
Yeah. So that is the extensive list of all of the ministries that are typically going on here. There are definitely some other things that are maybe one-offs or offshoots or something that happen throughout the year. But typically what we've got going on as an outreach, as a ministry, as a decision-making group of people, as a strategic team of people, are all the things that we just listed. And that's a lot.
Yes.
There's a lot of people involved in that. And I think that's really a takeaway. I think it's not, we as the staff who are actually on staff at Crossway Church, we're really just the facilitators.
We're the visionaries.
And the organizers of this. But it's really you guys that are all of the ministry function and the actual work that gets done. I mean, we do work, obviously. I mean, we can have the best laid plans, and we can feel like God wants us to go a certain direction. But if we don't have people who are willing and able to step into these roles and go with us, our plans can be empty. It can be really easy for us to sort of just like sit in on a Sunday morning or just be a consumer of all the ministries that we have. But in reality, it's you guys, it's our church community that breathes life into what our ministries do and what our ministries, the effectiveness of our ministries, right? Like, this is what we do together as a church family.
Yeah, because God has wired you a certain way, right? And, you may, like the people that I'm thinking like on the worship team, they're wired to lead worship. And so they're passionate about that and they love that and that shows. And so you have a passion somewhere underneath all of that. You just kind of have to figure out what it is.
Yeah. So what can people do then? So we have all of this information that we've just thrown at you about what our church does. Maybe you don't even go to our church and you're listening to this. This is just like a sort of sneak peek of how we operate as Crossway Church in Vicksburg, Mississippi. But what can people do, especially if they are a part of our church family, to help support all this stuff?
Yeah.
To be a part of it.
One of the things I really I want to encourage you to do and to do weekly is to pray for our volunteers. Really just spend some time in praying that God uses them and speaks through them and shows the people that they're in contact with how much He loves them. And so I think that's important because it's oftentimes as volunteers, things can be discouraging. And Satan will find any type of little thing to weasel his way in and discourage volunteers. And so I ask that you guys pray for our volunteers, pray that they're protected, and that they know that they're so important to making things happen.
Yeah. And something else that you can obviously do, if you're not already, is you can find a place to volunteer, right? And a way that you can do this that I think is almost natural to all of us, but a lot of times it expresses itself very negatively, is if you see or you recognize or you think that there's a lacking or a failing in our ministry as Crossway Church, because you probably will. I mean, most of us do. That comes naturally for me to be like, I have clarity on this and I feel like it should be done a different way or something. If you have that, I want you to take all of that and instead of making it something negative or talking bad about our ministry or something, do something about those things. Like make it a point for you to take initiative in that. I've found that typically God gives us clarity about something that somebody else doesn't see in order for us to do something about it.
Right.
And so you can. What I would suggest is if you're not already volunteering, find a place to do so. But also, if you feel like there's something that we're lacking as a ministry, if we're not serving somebody or outreach is not as good as it could be or something like that, and you have ideas about how it could be, we want you to take the initiative in doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's so important because a lot of times we may feel like I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to be a bother.
That's not really my MO, though.
Well, this is true. But you may be a little less extroverted as Josh, and you just let it eat at you, and you don't say anything, and you wonder, why are they not doing this? Well, it's a good chance, like, we just haven't thought of it. Yeah. And so, I encourage you, or, just pray. Pray God creates a passion in you that allows you to see which direction you're going to go. And you might be surprised exactly what He tells you. Yeah. Something that I would really press you to avoid doing or being in the mindset of is being so consumeristic about what we do as a church, right? There's a lot of ministries that we do, that we have here at Crossway, and it's for the purpose of serving and helping people grow in their relationship with God. But I think an indicator of us being too consumeristic about those things is that when we see all these things or things that we think should be done better or something that we don't do, we just up and leave and try to go get that in a consumerist fashion somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's being the church. I think being the church is being a part of that process. And so that's really one of the main reasons why we wanted to list everything that we have going on as Crossway Church, all of the outreach and the service and the ministry that we do, so that you can be aware of. And if you listen to this whole thing, got all the way to the end.
And gotta just check out the links if you missed it out. There's gonna be a ton of links in there. But we want you to be aware of all this stuff, and if you're not already a part of it, get plugged in somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Again, like I said, I'm going to have all the links to a lot of.
Hopefully, you'll remember them all.
Everything that we talked about, I'll put in the description of this video if you're watching it. If you're on Spotify or a different podcast platform, just check out the Church Center app or crossway.news. You can also find more episodes of our podcast from past weeks on crossway.news Church Center app or any of the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.